Hi guys, and welcome back to another championship prediction video. Round 3 coming up. Not going to do a recap of round 2 because I got no scores correct, and out of the 11 games that were played I actually only got one result correct, which was Blues winning. So I'll obviously take that because Blues were the team to win, but very disappointed with my predictions. I don't actually think I've had a round that poor over the whole of last season. And you know, second game week in, we throw an absolute stinker out there. But without further ado, before we get into it, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell for all of my football content, but specifically Championship for this video. And let's get in to my predictions. And our first game is a big one between two teams that were in the Premier League last season. And to be fair, the team not involved, Norwich, haven't got off to the best start. So these two are, they've started well, and it's going to be a very, very interesting game. Watford take on Burnley. Now, both of them have identical records. They both won their first game 1-0 and then drew their second game 1-1. Watford have the best attack in the league of Pedro, Dennis and Sarr. That to me is, those players should really be playing in the Premier League, all three of them. So I think that if they can keep hold of them, they're going to have a brilliant season. But I don't think that's the case. I think they will lose them. Dennis and Sarr are both already linked with Premier League clubs, so that's two of them that are potentially going to go. Now, Watford drew their last game against West Brom 1-1, but they weren't that convincing. In fact, West Brom outplayed them for the whole game pretty much. And if it wasn't for Ismaila Sarr's wonderful, goal from inside his own half, spotting the goalkeeper off the line, brilliant goal, brilliant touch, and then, incredible goal. But if it wasn't for that, West Brom would have won that game because they had their chances, they were the better team. And I was quite surprised that Watford didn't put their power that they've got in their team. They didn't use their quality better. They didn't end up winning that game really. They struggled in the midfield. That is where the game was. That's where they ended up not doing so well, which led to the draw. But I think that's why West Brom dominated the match, because their midfield just wasn't strong enough against West Brom's midfield. But Watford, good start, and I think that if they can keep their players, they'll have a brilliant season. They're up against the Burnley side that I watched in their first game, and they looked brilliant against Huddersfield. Vincent Kompany's really changed the team. Then they drew against Luton, and I think this, for me, is going to be another draw. I don't want to sit on the fence too much, but I'm struggling where to call this one. So I'm going to go for it 1-1. Next up, Cardiff take on Blues. An interesting game here because Cardiff have had two very contrasting results. They beat Norwich, but then lost to Reading. Quite a difference there. I was quite surprised at both of those results, to be honest. Blues, we've started very well. We've taken on two of last season's playoff teams, and we've got a draw against Luton and a win against Huddersfield. Very happy with our start and hoping we can continue here. This is the Saturday afternoon game, 12:30 kickoff, live on Sky. And come on Blues, let's get that win live on Sky. 2-1. Blackpool take on Swansea next, and Blackpool won 1, lost 1, lost their last game against Stoke 2-0. Swansea have surprised me, but not in a good way. They've been very poor. Drew their first game against Rotherham, lost 3-0 to Blackburn. I'm not sure how to call this one because I thought Swansea were going to have a brilliant season, and obviously they still could, but they seem to have started awfully. And I don't know when they're going to really kick in. Blackpool don't look strong. You look at their team, on paper, they don't look like they're going to do too much this season. So, I don't know what to go with, really. Are Swansea going to finally get a win on the board? Or are they going to be poor again? I'm not sure. So, sitting on the fence. My apologies, but I'm doing it again. I said I wasn't going to. I can't help it. It's so hard to read teams this early on. So 1-1. Huddersfield take on Stoke next. And I've actually seen both of Huddersfield's first games because I watched the one against Burnley, the opening game, and I watched them against Blues. And they haven't done well. They have not started well at all. 0 points. They've lost both. Stoke, they lost 2-0 to Millwall and then won 2-0 against Blackpool. So they're on 3 points. And I think they're going to win here, but I think it's going to be quite a tight game and Stoke just to nick it, 1-0. Hull take on Norwich now. And this is a very weird one because Hull, 4 points from the first 2 games, good start. Norwich, 1 point, and they've taken on Cardiff and Wigan, who realistically are 2 teams that are going to be finishing bottom half. So it's a bit worrying that Norwich haven't been able to get at least 4 points on the board, but if not 6, from those games, their squad should really be getting 6 points. So I'm not sure what direction Norwich are really going in, and that's why I'm going to go down the middle. Like, I was tempted to say Norwich are going to get their first win, but Hull have performed quite well so far, and Norwich just haven't. So, on the evidence I've currently seen, I'm going to go down the middle, 1-1. Luton take on Preston now, and both these teams have drawn both their games. The only difference is Luton have drawn one of them 1-1 and the other 0-0. Whilst Preston have drawn both of them 0-0. So Preston yet to score, yet to concede. They were the team last season that had the most draws in the division. And that was partly down to Ryan Lowe coming in. He made them very hard to beat, but they always seem to struggle to get that winning goal. In this game, I think that Luton at home will just have enough. They've scored this season, Preston haven't. And it makes me think that they're going to be the team to just about nick this one, 1-0. Millwall take on Coventry next. And Millwall, they won 2-0 opening day against Stoke, lost 2-0 their second fixture against Sheffield United. So, they started well and then struggled against Sheffield United. But I think they're going to be a decent team this season that get a top half finish, like they did last season, somewhere around 9th. And, being up against a Coventry side that drew their first game against Sunderland, but then didn't get to play their second game due to the condition of their pitch being so poor. It actually got called off. And I think that Millwall are just going to have the quality here. So I'm going to go Millwall win 2-1. Rotherham take on Reading next, and similar to Coventry, Rotherham have only played 1 game due to their second fixture being against Coventry, and they got a good point, 1-1 draw against Swansea, wasn't expecting it. They're up against the Reading side that lost their first game against Blackpool, but then went on to beat Cardiff 2-1, so they're sitting on 3 points, and I think they are going to struggle this season. I think both of these will, but I kind of think that this is going to be an even game. It's a hard one to call. I think if Reading strikers are on it, then they'll be able to win. But I've just got a feeling that this one is going to go down the middle and be quite uneventful. So I'm going to go for a 0-0. Up next, Sunderland take on QPR. And something interesting is that both of these teams won their last game 3-2. It's quite a weird scoreline, but yeah, Sunderland beat Bristol City 3-2. QPR got a brilliant 3-2 win against Middlesbrough, which You know, Middlesbrough look like they're going to be a good side this season, so that's a very, very good result. I am not sure how to call this, because Sunderland having the stadium a light factor, you know, all the fans rocking again, is going to do something to that away team every single game, unless they go into a terrible pit of form. But I think that this one is going to be down the middle again, but I'm not going to go for the 1-1s, and I'm not going to go for a 0-0 either. Going for something exciting. I think I predicted this last week for Sunderland, but 2-2. Up next, Wigan take on Bristol City. Two very contrasting starts, but somehow Wigan have more points. Wigan, 2 draws, only scored 1 goal so far, so obviously conceded 1 as well. Very quiet, but they're picking up points. Bristol City, they have scored 3 in their 2 games, but conceded 5. So they've managed to lose both of them, which is quite strange. You know, 8 goals in their first 2 games. Very eventful. Something that we were familiar with from last season with Bristol City. And they don't seem to have sorted out their defensive issues yet. Now, Bristol City in attack, very good. Andreas Weimann had a brilliant season last season. Good start to this season as well. But the question is, have Wigan got the attacking power to outscore Bristol City, really? Because for me, there's going to be goals in this game. So it's just whether Wigan have the ability up front to be better than Bristol City's attackers, and I don't think they do. So for me, Bristol City to get their first points of the season in a 3-2 victory. A big game here as Middlesbrough take on Sheffield United. Now Middlesbrough have got off to a tough start. A draw against West Brom and then a loss against QPR leaves them on 1 point. Sheffield United, they lost against Watford in their first game, but then went on to beat Millwall. So this is a very difficult one to call. And it's the Chris Wilder derby. You know, he was brilliant at Sheffield United. He's now at Middlesbrough trying to do something similar. And I really don't know where to go with this. I think that Sheffield United might have a little bit more quality. It's whether they can score the goals to get this win, because in attack they do lack a bit of consistency. But for me, I am going to go for it. The away side, Sheffield United, Chris Wilder's former side, to win it 2-1. And the final game is Blackburn taking on West Brom. Now Blackburn have got off to the best start, the only team to win their first 2 games. And they were quite tough fixtures on paper, QPR and Swansea. Managed to beat QPR 1-0 and Swansea blew them away 3-0. Brilliant start, didn't see it coming. Now West Brom, they've drawn both their games. And the first one, they drew against Middlesbrough 1-1, and then Watford 1-1. 2 tough games again. For me, I think I'm going to go with a team that's got a bit more quality. The team that I for some reason predicted to win the league, but they did boss that Watford game. Just didn't have that clinical, you know, the clinical end to win that one. But I'm going to go for West Brom to win this one. Just about. I think they are strong enough in midfield and defence to keep a clean sheet. And then I think they'll just nick a goal. So I'm going to go West Brom win 1-0. So, those are my predictions for these upcoming Championship fixtures. Make sure to let me know your predictions down in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and hit the notification bell for plenty more Championship content to come.